Is there any support for it?
Well, there's a realization, I think, among a lot of policymakers that we don't have a whole lot of options in terms of dealing with these fiscal crises, that we can cut spending, and we will and should cut spending. But when you talk about billions and billions of dollars, you're not going to cut your way there.
Right.
I think it's not maybe a popular thing to say with some conservative groups, but it's unfortunately the truth. And so interestingly, what the governor has tried to do is go after interest groups who receive money, people in public education, people who are advocates for welfare or for Medicaid, people who are advocates for various medical research, and say, well, if you want that money, all that money that we cut out of your budget, and if you don't want to get cut in the future, I need you to advocate for tax increases. And so he will try to enlist them for the sales taxes. He tried last year and failed to enlist them for the personal income tax.
Wow.
Now, the interesting thing, Dave, is make sure that our viewers understand the governor's position on this. He's proposing these changes in the sales tax, but he's not proposing the elimination, is he, of any other of the standing taxes that we already have?
Right, this would all be new revenue. Now, what he is proposing...
And he proposed that everything, all these nuisance taxes would still be there, the school property tax would still be there, which is something the Sweet Commission said we could do away with, but the governor's not going to let it go.
Well, more recently, Sam Rohr has, state representative, currently a Republican candidate for governor, has often said he'd rather move to a broadened sales tax and use it to get rid of property taxes. Now, part of it is, do the numbers add up? The property taxes paid by residents and businesses that go just to school districts, that's something like $10 billion a year. Now, currently, our sales tax at 6% with the current base. And the thing that gets confusing about taxes, there's two things. What does it apply to, what we call the base, and then what's the rate, the percentage rate that you apply to it. What the governor wants to do is a little, hey, I'll lower the rate to 4%. That's a third lower. That'll make everybody happy. But he's going to apply the tax to more things. He believes it'll grow revenue by about $1.5 billion in coming years. The issue is that doesn't get you to the $10 billion, and we make a little under $10 billion now at 6% on the current base. So to do the Sam Rohr proposal, you'd have to double it. You'd have to take it to 12%. Well, 6% is actually about the national average. 12% would just be, making Pennsylvania stick out like a sore thumb. That's not tenable. That can't be done. So hence the reason Sam wanted to go down a little bit on the rate, but also broaden the base. And the governor goes that way. He wants to do it purely for new revenue, though. The governor is not talking about as a substitution for other taxes.
Well, I think you mentioned earlier that some of the gubernatorial candidates would be happy to see some of these proposals go into place before they would go into office. Are we hearing from any of the candidates on
Sure.
some of these issues?
There are two Republican candidates, Tom Corbett and Sam Rohr, two major candidates. There's a third gentleman, but who really, very small base and very small backing. And the major candidates within the Democrat Party are Dan Honorato, County Executive in Allegheny County, Jack Wagner, the Auditor General, Tony Williams, State Senator from Philadelphia, and then Joe Hoffel, currently Montgomery County Commissioner, formerly a member of Congress and the state legislature. All of them, I think, recognize the realities that the next governor is in for a very, very tough 4 years, and that these issues are daunting. One of the things we didn't even touch on is mass transit that I know you have an interest in, and highway.
Let's talk about that, Dave.
You have the I-80 thing hanging out there still.
It appears as if right now we're in a situation with the Act 44 that was passed the other year, that the Turnpike is responsible for giving the money to PennDOT to repair all the roads and bridges of Pennsylvania, and then to make up for any shortfalls in mass transit in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia as well. And this all hinges on the tolling of I-80.
Federal approval of that.
And the federal approval, that's right, in Washington for the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Obama administration. And there hasn't been a quick approval of it. There's some apprehension right now in Harrisburg whether or not that will happen. If that doesn't happen, where do we go?
Well, that's another $500 million a year. And I think it's important for viewers to understand that money would go to maintenance, to keeping the roads and bridges we have safe. It doesn't add any capacity. We know that in a lot of areas of the state we need capacity. And yes, I certainly understand mid-state viewers who say, oh, but this is all going to get sucked up by Philadelphia and Pittsburgh for SEPTA and the Port Authority Transit for their mass transit systems. some of the money goes to mass transit, but the great lion's share that goes to road maintenance and bridge maintenance. And for the people along I-80 who have been vociferous in their opposition, including some business groups and local chambers, saying, oh, it's not fair that we should pay this for the rest of the state. Well, starting 2 years ago, tolls were increased on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. So those who use the Turnpike, which are far more people than use I-80 in terms of local citizenry and local commuters, they've had a 33% increase over the last 2 years. All that money already going into this system, this additional revenue for maintenance issues. So in terms of equity, theirs wasn't zero, but they're paying 33% more than what they were paying before. So they have, the lower part of the state's also been part of this. But the simple issue is it's either going to be tolls or a gas tax or a miles driven tax or some combination of all the above. But our roads and bridges are crumbling, and Pennsylvania has the freeze-thaw problem because of our climate. We have more roads than any other state in America that we maintain, 44,000 miles of state-maintained roads. And we know that we have bridges that are structurally deficient, which is an engineering term for saying maybe not safe. Do you want to drive your family across that? We don't want the Minnesota issue.
No.
So I mean, that's just another list of reasons not to be running for governor right now, because it's going to be a daunting 4 years.
Well, we are tackling a lot of different issues in Pennsylvania. We've touched a lot on the budget. We've got a lot of political stuff going on. We've got some interesting trials occurring here in Pennsylvania for former state legislators. Is there an end in sight to some of the negative publicity that Pennsylvania's been getting?
Well, the good news is that we always have Illinois, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Louisiana, and lately Governor Patterson in New York. So we're being replaced by the late night comedy of other states and their
we don't have two senates in Pennsylvania working simultaneously as we had in New York for
right.
a while, Dave.
But I mean, it's sad. For whatever you think about Representative Vian and the others that have been charged, I think it's sad for Pennsylvania. I don't think it's anything to be made light of or be proud of. I think you do have to draw a line and say this is not acceptable behavior. Now, I think we also have to draw a line that says politicians do politics.
Exactly.
And so do their staff. So I think we have to understand that, and I think a lot of people do understand that there's going to be politics done in the state capitol. It's the use of state monies and the diversion of state monies into other purposes, let alone to enriching people themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Dave, thank you very much for joining us for an entire show to take a look at the state of Pennsylvania's finances. We're going to, Maura and I are going to see what we can do about our own checkbooks, aren't we?
Fix 'em.
And make those balances stronger. And
don't print the money like in Washington.
Okay.
They frown on individuals doing that. Yeah.
Maura, we have to
We're out of
rethink
luck.
this strategy. All right, we'll see you again next week on Behind the Headlines.